Good day, viewers and listeners! It's another magnificent day in this beautiful city of Tagum. Welcome once again to Salida, TeleRadyo of La Filipina National High School. I'm your teacher host, Ma'am Janet Bacalya. And today you will learn another scientific topic about homeostasis, an exciting lesson in Science 10. And now, let's give the floor to our teacher broadcaster, Sir JERYPHIER, CESPON.
Good day, students. How are you today? Welcome to another exciting learning of science. I am JERYPHIER J. CESPON, your radio teacher broadcaster for today. Please get ready your self-learning module for grade 10, quarter 3, module 3 as we will start our adventure in exploring the nature of human body. Today, we will discuss some homeostasis mechanisms that are controlled by our nervous system, which coordinates with other organ systems in our body, like reproductive systems that are discussed in the previous modules and episodes. Before we will proceed, here are the objectives. Number 1. Describe how nervous system coordinates and regulates feedback mechanism to maintain homeostasis. This is also our most essential competency for today. Number 2. Explain how positive and negative feedback help maintain stability and consistency in our body. And third, analyze the components of feedback mechanism through identification of organs involved in the homeostasis. Now, are you ready? To gauge our progress, let's check our understanding by doing the first activity. This activity is called Fun React. I will read 5 different statements and you will determine if it is true or false. For our FB Live viewers, you can answer by reacting heart if it is true or haha if not. For our listeners, you can write heart or haha as your answer in a clean sheet of paper. I will give 5 seconds for you to answer honestly. Ready? Let's start. Number 1. Homeostasis is the stability of all physical and chemical conditions of an organism to keep itself alive. Again, number 1, homeostasis is the stability of all physical and chemical conditions of an organism to keep itself alive. Is it heart or haha? Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer is heart. Next, number 2. Homeostasis use self-regulating processes called positive feedback and upward feedback mechanism. Again, number 2. Homeostasis use self-regulating processes called positive feedback and upward feedback mechanism. Is it heart or haha? Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer is aha. Third, feedback mechanism has 3 basic components. It includes receptor, control center, and effector. Again, for number 3, feedback mechanism has 3 basic components. It includes receptor, control center, and effector. Is it heart or haha? Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer is heart. Number 4. Positive feedback amplifies the original reaction of the body to the stimulus. Again, number 4. Positive feedback amplifies the original reaction of the body to the stimulus. Is it heart or haha? Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer is heart. Last, for number 5, maintaining body temperature to its normal range is an example of positive feedback. Again, number 5, maintaining body temperature to its normal range is an example of positive feedback. Is it heart or haha? Your 5 seconds starts now. The correct answer is haha. Well done, students! How is your score? Hope it triggers your enthusiasm to our lesson today. Now, can we start? Did you experience sweating because you are nervous or just the environment is very hot? Or did you witness a normal childbirth? These two are few of many examples of mechanism of the body's homeostasis. Homeostasis is the ability of a body to maintain stable internal environment. It is an internal consistency of all physical and chemical conditions for any organism to survive. Homeostasis is achieved through different self-regulating processes in the body that is coordinated by our nervous system. It keeps our body healthy through maintaining right amount of nutrients, water, oxygen, temperature, and many other essential for our survival. Homeostasis has two mechanisms. The self-regulation of the homeostasis uses positive feedback and a negative feedback. Negative feedback reduces or reverses the changes detected in the body. In other words, it contradicts the stimulus sensed by our body. For example, when you feel hot because of sunny weather or due to fever, your body responds to the stimulus, which in this case is high temperature. Do you know what is the reaction of your body? It is sweating, which helps reduces your body temperature. The water allows faster transfer of heat, keeping your temperature in normal range. Or when you feel cold, you can observe that your body may shakes, or sa Bisaya pa, mangurog. And because of this movement and friction, it helps increase your body temperature, which maintains a normal range of temperature for survival. These two are examples of negative feedback mechanism because the reaction of your body is to reverse the changes made by the stimulus. In the first example, from high temperature, it reduces to normal body temperature. And in second example, from lower temperature, the reaction of the body increases your temperature to normal range. Positive feedback, on the other hand, intensify a response until endpoint is reached. Instead of reversing the stimulus, it increases the reaction. So, baliktad lang siya sa negative feedback. Ang negative feedback, it reverse. Positive feedback, intensify. For example, did you experience wounding yourself? A wound causes bleeding. The body responds with a positive feedback loop to cut the blood and stop the blood loss. Substances released by the injured blood vessel wall begin the process of blood clotting. platelets in the blood start to cling to the injured site and release chemicals that attract additional platelets. As the platelets continue, more of the chemical are released and more platelets are attracted to the site of the clot. The positive feedback accelerates the process of clotting until the clot is large enough to stop the bleeding. In other words, it is a positive feedback because platelets release clotting factor which cause more platelets to aggregate at the site of injury. It will only stop when the injured vessel is covered with the blood clots. Another example is the normal childbirth. In connection to our previous topic, which is the reproductive system, normal childbirth is an example of positive feedback. The process normally begins when the head of the infant pushes against the cervix. This stimulates the nerve impulses which travels from the cervix to the hypothalamus in the brain. In response, hypothalamus sends hormone oxytocin to the pituitary gland, which secretes into the bloodstream so it can be carried to the uterus. Oxytocin stimulates uterine contraction, which pushes the baby harder against the cervix. In response, the cervix starts to dilate preparation for the passage of the baby. This cycle of positive feedback continues with increasing levels of oxytocin, making stronger uterine contraction and wider dilation of cervix until the baby is pushed out of the mother's body. This is an example of positive feedback because weaker push of the baby, the body reacts with a harder contraction and wider dilation of the reproductive system. Now, can you differentiate the positive and negative feedback mechanism of homeostasis? Positive feedback intensify or increases the changes made by the stimulus until it stops, while in negative feedback, it reduces or reverses the changes made by the stimulus. But these two mechanisms promotes homeostasis in the body, which means maintaining the normal range of different factors for our survival. Now, in any mechanism, positive man siya or negative, we have three basic components. Besides of the type of mechanism of homeostasis, it's also important to take note its elements. In any mechanism, whether it is positive or negative feedback, it has three components, namely receptor, control center, and effector. Receptors that receives the stimulus and send nerve impulses to the control center. Control center, it analyzes the stimulus or the nerve impulses and send an instruction for appropriate reaction. Meaning, it will coordinate the different organs to respond to the stimuli received by the receptor. Third, or lastly, effector. It receives the messages from the control center and it produces the response or effect that changes the body condition. Let's have, for example, sweating. Sweating due to hot temperature. Do you remember what feedback mechanism this is? It is an example of negative feedback. In this example, the receptor is the nerve cells in the skin which senses the hot temperature outside of the body. It will send nerve impulses to the brain, which is the control center. It analyzes the stimuli and decides what is the appropriate reaction. After, it will send an instruction to effector, sweat gland, to carry out the desirable reaction, making the temperature lower. As a summary, our receptor in this example is the nerve cells in the skin. the control center is the brain, and the effector is the sweat gland. Did you get it? Let's have another example. From the latter discussion, we have the childbirth as positive feedback. Now, what are the components of this feedback mechanism? The receptor will be the cervix. When the baby pushes the wall, it sends signal to the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus now is our control center. Hypothalamus releases oxytocin, a hormone that instructs the uterus to contract. For this example, uterus will be our effector or the reactor. The cycle continues and intensifies until the baby is out of the mother's body. In shorter words, receptor is the cervix, control center is the hypothalamus, the effector or the reactor is the uterus. Is it easy, right? Let's exercise. We have case dissection. This activity is called case dissection. I will read an example of homeostasis reaction. You will determine its component and type of mechanism. I will give you 10 seconds to answer honestly in a clean sheet of paper. Ready? Let's start. Number 1. During ovulation, the ovary secretes high amount of estrogen hormone which stimulates the hypothalamus of the brain to release and increase GnRH or gonadotropin releasing hormone, which triggers the release of more amount of luteinizing hormone or LH by the pituitary gland. Again, during ovulation, the ovary secretes high amount of estrogen hormone which stimulates the hypothalamus of the brain to release and increase GnRH or gonadotropin releasing hormone, which triggers the release of more amount of luteinizing hormone by the pituitary gland. Your 10 seconds starts now. Okay, let's answer. The receptor for number 1 will be the ovary because it senses the stimuli. And the senses received by the ovary will be passed to and analyzed in the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus will analyze the stimuli and give the instruction to our effector, pituitary gland. So what type of reaction is this? Is it a positive feedback or a negative feedback? It is a positive feedback. Next, for number 2, increased movement and bowel pressure in the large intestine triggers nerve impulses to the spinal cord. Motor impulses from the spinal cord travels to colon, rectum, and anus, which result to defecation. Defecation results to lower colon pressure. Again, number 2, increased movement and bowel pressure in the large intestine triggers nerve impulses to the spinal cord. Motor impulses from the spinal cord travels to colon, rectum, and anus, which result to defecation. Defecation results to lower colon pressure. Your 10 seconds starts now. Okay, let's answer for number 2. The receptor for this item will be the large intestine because it senses the stimulus in our example, and it will pass the message to our control center na spinal cord. And the spinal cord will react and send an instruction to our effector called colon, rectum, and anus. So in this item, what type of feedback mechanism is this? This is a negative feedback mechanism. Next, for number 3, exhaling carbon dioxide lowers hydrogen ion concentration in the blood. Cells in the medulla of oblongata and heart send signal to the respiratory center of the brain, which sends signal to the lungs to contract more forcefully and frequently. As more carbon dioxide is released, blood pH increases. Again, for number 3, exhaling carbon dioxide lowers the hydrogen ion concentration in the blood. Cells in medulla of oblongata and the heart send signals to the respiratory center of the brain, which sends signal to the lungs to contract more forcefully and frequently. As more carbon dioxide is released, blood pH increases. Your 10 seconds starts now. Okay, let's answer for number 3. The receptor for this item will be the medulla of oblongata and the heart. When it sends the stimulus, it sends a signal to our control center na respiratory center of the brain, or simply the brain. And it will send an instruction to our effector, the lungs. So what type of reaction is this? Positive or negative feedback? It is a negative feedback mechanism. Now, did you have a correct answers? If yes, that is very good for the students. Last, now let's assess for learning today by answering the following questions. Write only the letter of your answer, and you may write it on a piece of paper, and you will given 5 seconds to answer honestly. After the time, I will give you the correct answer. Again, for the instruction, I will give multiple choice items. You will write the letter of your answer and write it in a piece of paper. You will be given 5 seconds to answer it honestly and correctly. So, let's start. Number 1. Which of the following types of feedback mechanism reduces the effect of the stimulus? A. Negative feedback. B. Positive feedback. C. Neutral feedback. Or letter D. Excessive feedback. Again, for number 1, which of the following types of feedback mechanism reduces the effect of the stimulus? A. Negative feedback. B. Positive feedback. C. Neutral feedback. Or letter D. Excessive feedback. Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer is letter A, a negative feedback mechanism. Next, for number 2, action potentials propagate when sodium ion enter the axon through ion channels. As more sodium ion enter the axon, more ion channel open. Which of the following mechanism does this refer to? Again, action potential propagate when sodium ion enter the axon through ion channels. As more sodium ion enter the axon, more ion channels open. Which of the following mechanism does this refer to? A. Negative feedback. B. Positive feedback. C. Neutral feedback. or letter D, excessive feedback? I will repeat the choices. A, negative feedback. B, positive feedback. C, neutral feedback. Or letter D, excessive feedback. Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer for number 2 is letter B, a positive feedback mechanism, because it intensifies the reaction. Next, number 3. Lactation or breastfeeding enhances the production of milk in the mammary glands, which encourages more breastfeeding. Which of the following feedback mechanism explains this process? A, negative feedback. B, positive feedback. C, neutral feedback. Or letter D, excessive feedback. Again, lactation or breastfeeding enhances the production of milk in the mammary glands, which encourages more breastfeeding. Which of the following feedback mechanism explains this process? A, negative feedback. B, positive feedback. C, neutral feedback. Or letter D, excessive feedback. Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer for number 3 is letter B, positive feedback mechanism, because it intensifies the reaction. Next, number 4. When the body starts sweating due to hot weather outside, what will be the receptor of this feedback mechanism? Again, when the body starts sweating due to hot weather outside, what will be the receptor for this feedback mechanism? A, temperature. B, brain. C, skin. Letter D, sweat glands. Again, when the body starts sweating due to hot weather outside, what will be the receptor for this feedback mechanism? A, temperature. B, brain. C, skin. Or D, sweat glands. Your 5 seconds starts now. Okay, the correct answer for number 4 is letter C, because the skin receives the stimulus from the environment. It senses the hot temperature. Number 5. Which of the following best describes how nervous system coordinates the feedback mechanism to maintain homeostasis? A, by receiving signals from the body. B, by controlling the movement of the different organs in the body. Letter C, by producing substances such as hormones to create effects in the body. Or letter D, by integrating nerve signals and sending responses to effectors in the body. Again, for number 5, which of the following best describes how nervous system coordinates and the feedback mechanism to maintain homeostasis? A, by receiving signals from the body. B, by controlling the movement of the different organs in the body. Letter C, by producing substances such as hormones to create effects in the body. Or letter D, by integrating nerve signals and sending responses to effectors in the body. Your 5 seconds starts now. The correct answer is letter D, by integrating nerve signals and sending responses to effectors in the body. This will help coordinate the reaction from the different organ system in the body and send signal and analyzes the proper reaction. Congrats, students! We are almost done. let's have your assignment. Please answer the Activity 7 in Let Us Enhance of your Self-Learning Module, Science 10, Quarter 3, Module 3 on page 21. The activity is called Case of Blood Sugar. Write your answer to all guide questions in a clean sheet of paper and pass it to your science teacher during the next retrieval of modules. That's all for today, and thank you very much for staying with me. And please make sure to be with us in the next episode only here on School on Air. Again, this is Sir Jerry, your teacher broadcaster. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Sir JERYPHIER CESPON, and thank you also to our viewers and listeners for tuning in. Hope you learned so many things today. Once again, this has been your teacher host, Teacher Janet Bacalia, saying existence could not formulate if there was no homeostasis of grounding. Bye-bye! Keep safe, everyone!